11 Most Evil Women in Human History. Most serial killers are men. For this reason, when people hear about serial killers, they immediately think of men. But throughout history, some women have proven that this is not always the case. This list of evil women will shock you. The list includes serial killers, gangsters, assassins, and more. Some killed their own children. In this video, you'll discover 11 most evil women in human history. They come from different status, powerful and weak, rich and poor, as well as women of different racial backgrounds. But before I begin with the list, kindly subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to receive notifications of new uploads. 11. Jennifer and Sarah Hart. Jennifer and Sarah Hart is a lesbian couple who heartlessly torture and murder 6 adopted children by driving the family's sport utility vehicle off a cliff in Mendocino County, California. Worse, they got away with the crime. On March 26, 2018, Jennifer and Sarah Hart murdered all 6 of their children when Jennifer Hart drove an SUV over a 100-foot cliff on California State Route 1 in Mendocino County, California, near Westport. The bodies of 5 of the children, Hannah, 16, Marcus, 19, Jeremiah, 14, Abigail, 14, and Sierra, 12, were found in or nearby the vehicle, which landed upside down on a Pacific Ocean beach. The body of Devontae, 15, has not been found. Toxicology results showed that at the time of the crash, Jennifer Hart was over the alcohol legal limit. The toxicology tests also found that Sarah Hart and 2 of their children had diphenhydramine in their systems. Authorities found that the SUV had been intentionally driven off the edge of the cliff, but the California Highway Patrol claimed that the criminal prosecution was not possible due to the deaths of any responsible parties. 10. Lydia Sherman, December 24, 1824 to May 16, 1878. Also known as the Derby Poisoner, Lydia was an American serial killer who poisoned 8 children in her care, 6 of which were her own, and her 3 husbands. She was convicted of second-degree murder in 1872. 5 years into her sentence, she escaped under the pretext of being sick and got a job as a housekeeper to a rich widower in Providence. She was caught and imprisoned again before dying in Wethersfield State Prison on May 16, 1878, from cancer. 9. Maria Mandel, January 10, 1912 to January 24, 1948. Maria was an Austrian SS Helferin known for her role in the Holocaust as a top-ranking official at the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp, where she is believed to have been directly complicit in the deaths of over 500,000 female prisoners. Mandel promoted Ilse Greece to head of the Hungarian women's camp in Birkenau. According to some accounts, she often stood at the gate into Birkenau waiting for an inmate to turn around and look at her. Any who did was taken out of the lines and never heard from again. At Auschwitz, Mandel was known as the Beast, and for the next 2 years she participated in selections for death and other documented abuses. She signed inmate lists, sending an estimated 500,000 women and children to their deaths in the gas chambers at Auschwitz I and II. Mandel was executed for war crimes. On January 24, 1948, she was hanged at the age of 36. 8. Belle Gunness, November 11, 1859 to possibly April 28, 1908. Born Brynhild Paulstatter Storset, Belle Gunness was a Norwegian-American serial killer who was active in Illinois and Indiana between 1884 and 1908. Gunness is thought to have killed at least 14 people, most of whom were men she enticed to visit her rural Indiana property on the premise of marriage, while some sources speculate her involvement in as many as 40 murders. Belle Gunness's criminal activities came to light in April 1908, when the Gunness farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana burned to the ground. In the ruins, authorities found the bodies of a headless adult woman, initially identified as Belle Gunness, and her 3 children. Further investigation unearthed the partial remains of at least 11 additional people on the Gunness property. Gunness seemingly died in a fire in 1908, but it's popularly believed that she faked her death. Her actual fate is unconfirmed. 7. Irma Ida Ilse Greece, October 7, 1923 to December 13, 1945. Irma Greece was a young woman that started committing horrible crimes when she was less than 20 years old. She was a SS guard at the concentration camps of Ravensbrück and Auschwitz, and then later promoted to work as the head official, warden, in charge of the women's section of Bergen-Belsen. Her main job was to participate in prisoner selections for the gas chambers. She had the habits of selecting women who had retained vestiges of their former beauty. It is said that Irma Ida was happy to realize the terror her presence caused to the women at the roll call. In addition to selecting women for the gas chambers, she was also accused of torturing, beating, oppressing, and unjustly murdering prisoners. She was known for torturing both physically and psychologically thousands of female prisoners throughout her career. Greece was among the 45 people accused of war crimes at the Belsen trial. Represented by Major L. Cranfield, her trials lasted 2 months. At the end, she was convicted for crimes against humanity and sentenced to death at the Belsen trial. Greece was executed at 22 years of age. 6. Ilse Koch, September 22, 1906 to September 1, 1967. Ilse Koch was the devil in the flesh for most people in the 1960s. She was married to Karl Otto Koch, who was commandant of the Nazi concentration camps Buchenwald and Majdanek. She was among the first famous Nazis to be investigated and taken to court by the U.S. military. Her trials received media coverage all around the world. Although no one knows for sure how many people she killed, survivors' accounts describe her abuse of prisoners as cruel and barbarous, and had the image of the concentration camp murderess. Ilse Koch did not just kill her victims. She kept souvenirs on the skin of murdered inmates with distinctive tattoos, leading the inmates to nickname her the Witch of Buchenwald, Die Hex von Buchenwald, due to her cruelty and lasciviousness towards prisoners. Ilse Koch was also nicknamed the Beast of Buchenwald, Queen of Buchenwald, Red Witch of Buchenwald, Butcher Widow, and more commonly, the Bitch of Buchenwald. Following 2 trials and humiliation, Koch committed suicide at Eichach on September 1, 1967, at the age of 60. 5. Marie Delphine Lalaurie. More commonly known as Madame Lalaurie, Marie Delphine Lalaurie was a privileged, wealthy, and aristocratic woman who had a large known reputation and a high social position in Louisiana. But she was also a heartless murderer, a serial killer. Louisiana-born socialite Lalaurie married 3 times over the course of her life. She maintained a prominent position in the social circles of New Orleans until April 10, 1834, when rescuers responded to a fire at her Royal Street mansion. Her dark secret was about to be finally out. Upon arrival at the mansion, the firefighters discovered bound slaves in her house, who showed evidence of torture over a long period of time. Lalaurie's house was subsequently sacked by an outraged mob of New Orleans citizens, but she managed to escape to France with her family. Rescuers found 2 slaves chained to a stove, several others found tortured and disfigured in the attic, and others were badly wounded and mutilated. Some slaves were forced to wear tight spiked collars. Deceased slaves were found buried under her mansion. 4. Marianne Cotton, October 31, 1832 to March 24, 1873. Born Marianne Robson, Marianne Cotton did not murder strangers but people in her own family. She mainly used arsenic, which caused severe gastric pain and rapid decline of health. She was tried and convicted of murdering husbands and children to collect life insurance. As more children and husbands continued to die, authorities had suspicions, which led to forensic inquiry. Analysis of a sample of her last victim, Charles Edward Cotton, tested positive for arsenic. Police then arrested and charged Marianne with his murder. Further investigations revealed that Marianne Cotton also murdered some of her children. In fact, of her 13 children, only 2 survived her fatal actions: Margaret Edith and her son George from her marriage to James Robinson. She may have had as many as 21 victims. At the end, she was found guilty of killing 11 of her 13 children, 3 of her 4 husbands, and her mother. Marianne Cotton was hanged at Durham County Jail on March 24, 1873, by William Calcraft. She ultimately died not from her neck breaking, but by strangulation. 3. Queen Mary I, February 18, 1516 to November 17, 1558. Mary I was the Queen of England and Ireland from July 1553 until her death in November 1558. Her dreadful actions against her enemies and horrible ways she executed Protestants led historians to nickname her Bloody Mary. She was an overzealous Roman Catholic with a devilish heart. Mary is remembered for her restoration of Roman Catholicism by cruelties and devilish tortures. During her 5-year reign, she had over 280 religious dissenters burned at the stake in the Marian persecutions. She tortured and killed pregnant women as well as children. But her restoration of Roman Catholicism disappeared like smoke. The re-establishment was reversed after her death in 1558 by her younger half-sister and successor, Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry and Anne Boleyn. 2. Countess Elizabeth Bathory d'Acide, August 7, 1560 to August 21, 1614. The Countess of Bathory was a countess and serial killer from the Bathory family of nobility in the Kingdom of Hungary. She has been labeled by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most prolific female murderer and nicknamed the Blood Countess and Countess Dracula. Bathory was accused of torturing and killing 630 young women between 1585 and 1610. This number comes from witnesses such as Susanna, who had seen her private diary that Jacob Silvassi, Countess Bathory's court official, let testify. It is also believed that she bathed in the blood of virgins to retain her youthful beauty. Despite the evidence against Elizabeth, her family's influence kept her from facing trial. She was imprisoned in December 1610 within Szeged Castle, Upper Hungary, now Slovakia, where she remained immured in a set of rooms until her death 4 years later. The stories of her serial murders and brutality are verified by the testimony of more than 300 witnesses and survivors, as well as physical evidence and the presence of horribly mutilated, dead, dying, and imprisoned girls found at the time of her arrest. And number 1, Renovalon I, 1778 to August 16, 1861. Also known as Ramavo and Renovalo Manjaka I, Renovalon I was sovereign of the Kingdom of Madagascar from 1828 to 1861, after the death of her young husband Radama I. Renovalona pursued a policy of isolationism and self-sufficiency, reducing economic and political ties with Europe, repelling a French attack on the coastal town of Foul Point, and taking vigorous measures to eradicate Christianity, which was promoted by the London Missionary Society. She made heavy use of forced labor to complete public works projects and develop a standing army of between 20 and 30,000 Marina soldiers. But a combination of regular warfare, diseases, forced labor, and injustices resulted in a high mortality rate among soldiers and civilians during her 33-year reign. Renovalona adopted weird forms of judgment against Christians. Suspects were forced to eat poison along with 3 pieces of chicken skin. The only chance the accused had is to vomit up the poison. Those who could not were found guilty and put to death. As a result, the 5 million Madagascar population was reduced to 2.5 million in only 6 years during her reign. Thank you for watching until the end. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel to help us establish our presence on YouTube.